If you really want to do something, you will find a way.
Welcome back to this week's episode of The Executives, the show where we navigate the intricate world of executive leadership, exploring strategies, insights, and personal stories of successful professionals. I'm your host, Majid, and joining us today is Dr. Petrutsa. Dr. Petrutsa is a CEO, keynote speaker, and expert in startups, investment, and sustainability. She is the CEO of TIGZ, and she has led Accelerator programs, fostered partnerships, and driven sustainability in commercial real estate. She has 18 plus years of experience and specializes in digital transformation and business development, frequently speaking on entrepreneurship and ESG topics. Let us welcome Petrutsa. Salut și bun venit la podcast Petrutsa.
Thank you very much indeed, Majid. Thank you for your invitation and for the very kind introductory words.
I mean, I hope I did justice to Romanian. This was the first time I actually said anything in Romanian, like first time ever in my life. So if I was wrong, I apologize.
That was absolutely great.
I try to do justice. You have 18 years, 18 plus years of experience, and it is a hard job to basically justify and cramp everything together. So I would now give you the stage, like tell the listeners who are you in a bit more detail.
Where shall I start? Yeah, so I was born and grew up in Romania. Thank you for the salute in Romanian at the beginning of the interview. And when I was 19, I decided to, I guess, take a gamble, is what you do at that age. And I moved to Germany all by myself. And the initial plan was to spend a year working as an au pair with 2 kids, learn German, and then return to Romania. That plan didn't pan out the way I planned it. And so out of those, that 1 year in Germany, many more years followed. And here I am today, still or back in Germany, as a matter of fact. That first emigration that I did when I was 19 years old, I studied in Germany. I got a degree, I got a PhD here. I spent 3 years in Dublin, Ireland, as an academic at Trinity College Dublin. Came back to Germany, so emigrated some more times. Spent a year in Dubai as a management consultant. Came back to Germany. So my career really has evolved from getting a degree in Germany to becoming an academic in Ireland, coming back to Germany and changing gears, I should say, from academic life to business consulting, where I spent almost 10 years. And then after COVID hit in 2021, I took over at the helm of the startup hub you've mentioned called TIGZ, which stands for Technology, Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center in Ginsheim-Gustavsburg, which is roughly close to Frankfurt. So here I am today.
We will talk about serious topics, but normally what I tend to do is I always have a question that's completely off topic, and I try to ask them. For example, I've asked people if they won the lottery, what would they do? But today, that's not the question I have for you. The question I have for you: if you could have any celebrity as your co-founder, who would it be and why?
It's a great question, that's for sure. For quite a long time, somehow I thought I was not the most creative person. In the past few years, a bunch of people convinced me of the opposite by giving me very, very solid examples of various situations when I was indeed very creative. So, nevertheless, I do think I would love to co-found with someone who is a real bundle of creativity. And if there were no borders when it comes to time and place and money and whatnot, and because I really enjoy a challenge, I think I would have loved to co-found with Steve Jobs, because I think he was extraordinarily creative. I think he was also extraordinarily detail-oriented, which I also am. And from what I've heard, he was extraordinarily difficult to work with, and I really enjoy a challenge. So, I think I mean, if you had sent me this question, I don't know, a few days ago, I would have had time to think about it, and maybe I would have chosen someone else. I don't know, but out of the top of my head, I think, yeah, I would pick Steve Jobs because he was extraordinarily creative, very detail oriented, and quite challenging. I think, and that,
Hmm.
yeah,
No, but that's still a good answer. I mean, there is no wrong answer, right? This is just like,
exactly.
who would you like, for example, to be? If I were to tell you my answer, you would be surprised, like because I
No, go
actually
ahead.
thought about
I'm
it.
very, very curious, actually.
It would be one of the K-pop stars,
Uh
like
huh.
one Korean music. The ladies
Oh, the
from
K-pop. All
Blackpink.
right.
Yeah, yeah, K-pop.
A
So it
specific
would
one or just anyone?
it would be someone from Blackpink, probably like Rose or Lisa, for example, or
Okay.
Jenny. So one of them, because they are all very powerful women, like really powerful. Like so. I hope they get this message somehow. Like today we are sitting because we want to talk about your personal experience, and the topic we have is from female migrant to startup mentor, pioneering innovation and sustainability in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So the first thing that comes to my head, or the first thing I love to understand from the guests who are always there, is what transitioned them. What helped them get to where they are. Like, what was the inspiration? So in your case, the question would be like, what inspired your transition from being a young migrant in Germany towards becoming a leader in the startup ecosystem?
I don't know if I have one answer. I think it's a combination of many factors. What definitely helped was the fact that I've always been very curious. I've always wanted to break boundaries and learn about other fields, other career paths, other people. I've always been very driven too. I've never settled really on one thing and just decided to say, well, I've reached my potential and I'm staying here because it's kind of nice and warm and it's all fine. I've never been like that. I've always aspired to learn more, to know more. I've been very curious. It's not positive, not always positive. Curiosity killed the cat. That's what they say in English. So yeah, but I guess it's also not something that you choose. I think I don't think it's something that at a very cerebral level, I didn't really choose to be the way I am and to go from migrant to where I am today. It's just, yeah, various factors have been driving me, and I guess curiosity and the fact that I've been very ambitious and driven have always helped quite a bit. And I remember someone asked my mum once what defined me when I was a child and what was my personality like, and my mum said that for better or worse, if she had to pick just one word and one thing that characterized me when I was a child was that I was extraordinarily independent. I've always been just very, very much, my own item and wanted to do my own thing and be my own thing, I guess. So
Hmm.
I guess all of these are factors that have helped quite a bit. Another answer that my mother provided, it was not the first spot. I think it was a close second spot, was stubbornness. I've always been very, very stubborn. So, in fulfilling my goals or in pursuing my goals, it's been quite helpful to just have a certain degree of stubbornness because especially as a woman and especially as a migrant you encounter so many barriers and there are so many people that tell you, oh, you're never going to make it, and oh no, this is not even worth going for because it's just too much of a fight and too difficult, and oh, you were not cut to do it, and all of that. So it just kind of helps to say, oh yeah, I will, just to be stubborn and to believe in yourself and just to go after it anyway and just not listen to the haters, I guess.
Hmm. I mean, like oftentimes, like one of my mentors used to say that if you don't have haters, you're doing something wrong. So haters means you're doing something right. But now there are always milestones that shape a person, right? Like that shape, and would love to understand what were your key milestones in your career actually that shaped your approach to leadership and innovation.
So graduating with a degree in a language that is not your native language from a university in a foreign country, it's extraordinarily difficult. But the day you do it, you actually do start believing, well, you know, if I manage to do this, I could manage a bunch of other things that are probably not as intuitively easy as people might want them to think they are. So it did build a little bit of self-confidence, I suppose. My very first degree, the master's that I did in Heidelberg. And obviously, then the PhD was also a very important milestone, especially the PhD, I should say. I guess what also helped me realize that I can push further and further and bring forward my goals. How my immigration from one country to another multiple times has also helped quite a bit, and it helps you also put things into perspective because you are dead set on a certain routine and set of ideas and values that people at the other in the other country that you move to might see slightly or very differently depending on which cultural approach they take. So it does help you recalibrate and realize that yeah, maybe it's not all that set in stone like you thought before. And at least that helped me. I don't know how it might be for other people, but for me, it's been hugely helpful. And just to make a small parenthesis by the side, I truly enjoyed traveling, and it also helps me recalibrate and put things into perspective because you get to see that people that live somewhere else um, have very different lives. They're not better and they're not worse. They're just very, very different. And at least I feel like I can learn so much every single time I see a different perspective and a different place and different people. So that was a milestone that really helped as well. And I guess a bunch of the projects in my management consulting life have also really helped, especially pushing through various barriers and going through challenges. And then at the end of the day, all that matters, you really made it. You finished that project on time, on budget, and with all the specifications that the client wanted. So it is a small victory, I suppose, and it helps you take the next step and the one after that and the one after that, you know. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'm not sure that answered the question.
No, it did. It did. I mean, you mentioned something very nice that I mean, it's always a good reminder, also, right? I mean, sometimes when you listen to other people, it's always good to serve as a reminder that you should celebrate these smaller victories, right? You shouldn't wait for the next big project that you will have 100 million euros or 1 billion euros of revenue or whatever. But sometimes it's always good, like you celebrate small little things because they will bring back joy in your life. Recently I've started exploring journaling as well. Like I've encountered so many different kinds of like journaling, how people journal their days, their experience and so on. The most interesting was I met this lady on a flight. I was flying from Sydney back to, no, it was from Singapore to London. So we were talking and she was basically journaling and she was reading a book, and then I was asking, how do you journal? Like, we started talking and she explained the way she was journaling. So what she did, she would scribble everything positive, like that would come to her mind. And I was like, but when you do an introspective, wouldn't this mean that you only see positive? Like, how does this help you grow? Because my methodology of journaling is a little different. What I do is I only journal the good and the bad. It's very simple. Like, something bad happened, I write it down. Something good happened, I write it down. And then I am able to recall, okay, this is what happened. Maybe I fell down from the stairs, maybe I achieved a small milestone. So that's how I do it. What are your perceptions about the whole journaling thing? Like, how do you perceive that? Is it something helpful for people?
I have heard about various techniques, and I've done various courses, management courses, and self development and all that. And to be honest, I think there is not a one size fits all whatever is right for you might not work for me at all. I have extraordinarily dear, lovely friends that are doing extraordinary things with coaching. It's never been for me. I'm impossible to coach, and no, it just doesn't work for me. I'm happy to coach other people. It just doesn't work for me. There are people, also friends of mine, who are incredible with yoga. They say that they relax, and yoga helped them achieve all sorts of things and all that. Again, I've tried 30 different types of yoga, not there. Doesn't happen to me. So everyone is different, and I guess when keeping a journal and keeping I don't know, track of what has been helpful in life. The way I try to do it is I just keep track of the most important milestones that you've just mentioned. They might not be big milestones, but important milestones for what reason whatsoever. And what really, really helps is doing like a yearly retrospective. What worked last year, or what worked 10 years ago, what worked 20 years ago, something like that. And you realize how much you've grown, and how certain things maybe were meant to happen, and how you get that red thread through your curriculum. And I guess some things I did change in the course of my career, and some things I feel like, well, they will never change. They will just amplify. They just become stronger.
You mentioned you mentioned the first part that I liked about the whole one size doesn't fit all, right? So that's true. That it's important. Like in universities, we are taught, right, that one thing everyone needs to do the same thing, right? And then, but when you come out from university, you realize, like for example, when I look at my batchmates, we are all doing so different. Even though we have the same bachelor's degree, engineering, but we ended up with such diverse careers. For example, I had never thought in the corner of my mind I would be doing something with finance at all, like nothing at all. So I've become very like a completely different background. I mean, engineering, yes, there are numbers and so on, but normally, rarely, you see engineers going up and working in like core fintech products and core fintech, processes and so on. But now, normally, a journey, right, that's never smooth. It's like, yes, there are the good things, but there are also challenges, right? So what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced as you transitioned towards the business world, and how did you overcome them? I mean, now it might feel like, yeah, I did it like this, but when you were really in the situation, the feeling is different. Because at one point, I mean, for me, I can talk about myself, that at one point sometimes I'm like, you know what, I would rather just give up right now. So
We've all had our moments, I think, and I guess giving up is part of life. And then I, I think it's one of those internet memes. It's like, you fall, you then stand up, put your crown in the right place again, and then you continue marching. So, it's part of it. I think failure is part of the success and all that. I don't know what were some of the biggest challenges. If you had asked me that right in the middle of that, when things were not working, I would have had various explanations. But now, I guess, hindsight is 2020, as they say. I think one of the biggest parts was trust in myself, because I would question a lot of the things that I would do it this way, and it wasn't good enough, or it didn't get me where I wanted it to get me, so I would change it, and it wouldn't really be me. So the after I changed it, it would still not get me where I wanted to get. So, and I would question a lot of things, and I think trusting myself and trusting my gut, my intuition, my skills, my convictions, my values. Yeah, that would have helped. But I think life is a learning process. The older I get, the more I trust myself, and I see that part, and also trust from the others around me. And I think not many people like to talk about this, but just to put it there on the table, I do think it has something to do with the fact that I'm a woman and a foreigner. So, you know, I don't know, 20 years ago, I was a student and I was looking for an apartment. People would not trust me. I wouldn't, back then, my German was not perfect. So they would rather not give me that apartment, but give it to someone who spoke German and that they could communicate with perfectly well without some sort of a language barrier. And also, as I said, being a woman, they would rather take one of the boys and stuff like that. So these are small little things, but if I go down to what is it that really, really, really was a showstopper, at the end of the day, I do think it was trust. People that would not trust me to do a good job when it came to this job opportunity that they advertised, or this project that was, somebody had to get that project, and it wasn't me because they didn't trust me. They trusted someone that had a different profile. And if you really go deep down and talk to people and they're very, very honest, they would literally at one point maybe realize themselves or admit it to you that it does have something to do with the fact that you look differently, you sound differently, you don't convince them that you're the one doing that job better than someone else who has a different profile. So yeah.
I like how you connected the dots, right? So before you want others to trust you, you should trust yourself. Like,
I think so.
I think this is like often underrated, right? Like we don't sit down and we don't think like, hey, you know what, I got this, I can take care of this, like. But we would tell people, hey, you know what, you cannot do this, blah blah blah, and we know how to put the other person down, but we or how to motivate the other person, but we rather forget that, okay, dude, look, I'm also a human being at the end. I should also put myself up that I can do this. So I like the approach you mentioned, that maybe first learn to trust in yourself before you go outside, because if you don't look into yourself and you don't trust yourself, how should anyone outside trust you? So that's I mean, I love the flow of the explanation. It was really good.
Thank you.
Now would also love to talk about startups, so maybe tell us a little bit about the accelerator that you work at.
Maybe I should start a little before the accelerator. So, when I was a management consultant, I would literally make my money by advising large corporates who obviously have the financial ability of paying for those projects and, have a certain financial situation that allows them to hire a consultant and all that. But at the same time, I was also advising startups. And obviously, it was pro bono at the very beginning because startups in general don't have a lot of financial backing. Most of them bootstrap, most of them start very, very small. But that experience was truly invaluable, to be honest. I mean, not only have I learned a lot, and I've also tried to disseminate my knowledge and help the startups continue in their journey, but at the same time, I realized that a lot of things are universal. Just because a company is much, much smaller, it's just like I don't know, 5-man show, it doesn't mean that the problems and the opportunities are very, very different from a company that has 50,000 employees. Um, so again, just to come back to what you've just said, connecting the dots, it really helped me connect the dots. Now, in 2021, when I took over the startup hub where I am now, there was no accelerator program. This was just a building where people would come and just rent an office, and that was it. But they would also get consulting from me and from my team. And so there was a real need of, helping them out. And they are at different phases. Some of them are just starting. Some of them are in the middle of something. Some of them are right before a big exit or before a big M&A. So that's what makes it very, very interesting. But there were there really was a very clear need for that. So in 2023, so 2 years after I took over the Startup Hub, we started the Accelerator program. And it's mainly geared at the pre-seed and seed stage, so very young, very small startups that are just starting. Some of them are still at the ideal level, haven't gotten the MVP, the minimum viable product, just yet. So yeah, that's how it all started. But honestly, I'm not sure. Without that background, when I used to consult big corporates and startups, if I had not had that, and if I had not seen how much they have in common, I am not 100% sure that I would have started the accelerator in 2023. Maybe it would have taken me a little longer to realize that a formalized program with very clear stages and very clear trainers and people that come and talk to the startups and accelerate them. So without having that background, I'm not sure I would have come up with, hey, let's do this in a very structured way. Maybe I would have done it, but it would have been more of a, let's see, what does this guy need? What do we do with the other one? And so, yeah, this is how it all came about, I suppose. It just got streamlined. Yeah.
And you already mentioned you work with pre-seed and seed, but are there any specific industries you work with, or is it more like an open?
It's very open, but the focus and the very clear requirement is sustainability. So we don't work with people that, and we did have this. We had people who wanted to start the next tobacco company. That's not happening. So we do have that prerequisite, and we've had all sorts of industries, anything from IT to yeah, even artificial intelligence in the home improvement, all the way up to digital platforms, and even an artist who's just streamlining her activities into the digital world geared towards sustainability. And she's very successful, and she's working a lot with, you were just mentioning the people from the state departments and state governments. So yeah, a multitude of ideas and industries and people, and also the age range. I think the youngest one was just out of university, has just gotten his bachelor degree, so a very, very young fellow. And the oldest one is this artist. She is somewhere in her mid-50s. So, you're never too young or too old to innovate, I suppose. And
True.
if you do it in the sustainable space, I think there is a true need for it, and that's why people, are very successful in this space, because there's a true need for it. There's a true need for innovation in the sustainability arena. And there's enough space for all of us. There are always people that would criticize you and say, oh, no, you can't do that. And no, that's not good enough. And you should do it this way. So they don't do it, but they tell you how to do it. And there's enough space for everyone. You're not taking anything away from anybody.
Yeah, that's 100%. I mean, one of my friends was like, "Yeah, Majid, I'm planning to start a podcast." I'm like, "Just start." She was like, "But it's expensive." I'm like, "No, it's not." I'm like, "You have a MacBook. You don't even need to buy a camera." I was like, "I had to buy a camera because my laptop's camera is not good." So, and I my first camera with the podcast was only €100, nothing expensive. Afterwards, when it started growing, then I started buying better equipment and so on. Now I have lights and I have a proper camera and so on. I have I can do a 3-point recording, but it slowly, step by step. So, but now talking about startups, right? Because we need sustainability startups, 100%, 1,000%, I agree with it. But in your opinion, what is the most critical role that startups actually play in driving innovation and economic growth today?
We know the realities of the German economy. Growth has not been there for the past 2 years. Let's just say it as it is. And I don't think it's coming anytime soon from the companies that rely on business as usual and rely on consumer behavior and consumer preferences that, in their opinion, hasn't changed in the past 20 years. So obviously, we do need fresh blood. We do need these new ideas. We do need these new people who are courageous enough to start, just like you, with a small, simple camera. I mean, I am a big proponent of saying, if you really want to do something, you will find a way. If you don't want to do it, you'll find excuses. No, we are all always full of excuses when we don't want to do something. And as long as you're very honest with yourself, you don't have to only trust yourself, like I said earlier, but you also have to be honest with yourself. Do I really want to do this? Then if you really want to do it, money will not stop you. And various other things will not stop you. It's really you, and you will find a way. But if you don't really want to do it, you'll always find an excuse. So, yeah. And I think there is no excuse for not innovating these days. We're at the beginning of the 21st century. There's so many opportunities out there. There's so many things happening technologically. The artificial intelligence and all that. And also when it comes to nature, when it comes to people, when it comes to everything, the demographics, and there's so many things. And not innovating and just, sitting on the same chair for the next, I don't know, 3 decades until you retire, it's no excuse.
I mean, I agree. Like, you can develop things very quickly. I know someone who was basically, he had this idea. He's not a developer. Used ChatGPT to make a first POC, like a click dummy and so on. Went to a customer and said, "Hey, this is what I'm trying to build. Would you be interested in buying?" So they said yes, but right now this doesn't work. Okay, like, okay, so maybe you can help me fund it, like pay a bit of it, because the guy had good reputation as well, like management consulting reputation. And then he came to me, Majid, now look, I have this LOI. They already, like, LOI and a signed contract, they already paid 20% of the money. Our goal is we need to build this. I was like, and how did you convince them? Because it's a very specific product. He was like, he showed me the thing and he told me, like, I did it using ChatGPT. I was like, I am impressed. It was literally a click dummy. Nothing, it didn't work. It was just like a click dummy. But imagine it, like the whole AI has actually empowered people. And the worst part is I have seen a vice president of software engineering at a huge organization in Germany who is highly against AI, highly against AI. And I was questioning him, dude, you are the one who should be telling people that start accepting AI, try to use it as your, accelerator. But he's like, no, like upfront, no. If he finds out anyone's using AI, he takes, he puts them into a pip, basically, that this guy is not capable of working independently. So there are people like that as well.
I mean, there's always resistance to change. After the printing press was invented and the first books were printed and people started reading, this is a historical fact. You can look it up. Anybody can look it up. So what was circulating among people was the idea that if you read books, you're doomed, you will end up extremely stupid, and you won't manage to live a nice, normal, happy life. There's always resistance to change. We now know as a fact that reading books improves your life and improves your brain and all of that. But a few hundred years ago, people were resisting the books and resisting that change and, spreading all those rumors. And I think those people will always be there. But at the same time, you cannot stop progress. You're not going to make people go back to living in a cave and having no running water and no electricity and all of that. And yeah, just as much you won't be able to have people going back to the old ways, which when I say old, they're not even that old after all, maybe things that they didn't have in the 80s. We didn't have a mobile phone in our pockets in the 80s. But would you go back to those old ways? Well, over 90% of the population probably won't. And it's the same with everything. There's always resistance to change, but you can only resist for that much. And at one point, it's something will have to give. So,
I mean, this is getting more and more interesting because now your job is also like you have to like find the startups, right? Because you have to identify. Because you probably, I read somewhere, I think it was like at average, a VC gets about 2,000 startups a year, but they don't invest into that much. Maybe they will invest in 10, 20, maybe, but 20 is also still a big number. So they invest into very few startups. So you also get a lot of startups. I'm sure because I've done research on accelerators. That was my MBA thesis, and I realized that a lot of times you would have to make decisions, right? Identify, and then not only identify, you get these young people, for example, the young person who graduated from university, and then someone with a lot of experience down their sleeves, like the older musician, so how do you identify and nurture startups with basically a potential to making a significant impact in their industries? Because that's also a very hard job, in my opinion.
that's a very, very, very good question. So we are in the lucky position that startups come to us and apply for our program or want to move into the startup hub and have an office there, share the ecosystem. So we're privileged in that way. But I think the really important question, and I'm very glad you asked that, and I'm not sure I have an answer for it, is how do you make an impact? We try. We do our best. We provide an ecosystem. We connect them with the invest. We don't invest ourselves. We're not a VC, so we do provide that ecosystem and the networking. And we work with business angels. We work with the VCs. We work even with private equity. We work with all the people involved in those processes, and we can always provide contact and the path. But obviously, the people have to walk down that path themselves. You cannot do it for them. They have to do it themselves. But at the end of the day, it's really how do you make an impact? And we try, but it's very hard. I mean, we provide the structured program, the structured accelerator. On top of that, whenever they need some sort of advice or consulting or have any questions, they can always come to us and ask, and we do our very best to provide an answer. We don't have the answer to every single question, but what I usually say is, well, if I don't know it myself, I'll probably know someone that I can ask. I do know what door to knock on, so that might be helpful as well. But at the end of the day, it's you can only do this much. Maybe it's a little bit like a parenting role. We do our best to raise our startups, just like a parent does their best to raise their children. But at the end of the day, it's up to them. And we do definitely select them when it comes to the accelerator based on the sustainability component, which is non-negotiable, and also when we think they will have an impact. If we see that, then they're very, very welcome to the program. There are people out there and ideas out there that in a lot of ways are replicating older ideas, and we think, I don't know, do we need the next I don't know, the 100th Facebook or StudiVZ or whatever it used to be, do we need the 50th social network? Maybe we do. What is it? How is it? How is it impactful? What is it doing differently? So you always have to have a look at their ideas and their plans and their But it is indeed a very, very good question. How do you help them make an impact? Well, yeah, I guess the only answer that comes close is probably by behaving a little bit like a parent. You give them everything that you can give them, but at the end of the day, it's no clear-cut answer.
I mean, I like your answer because I have attended God knows how many conferences. I've probably last year alone, not last year, last year was a little less, but 2023, I attended more than 70, 80 conferences.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
When do you
that
have time
was,
for your life?
I mean, I was just on the road always. I was just attending conference after conference. So it was so brutal for me, but it was fun. And I was always questioning the same thing, like to a lot of people, like how do you make sure like that you gave them money, like they will actually survive? And most of the times the answer I got was very sort of, yeah, 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 they will survive, we just know it's the next big thing. But no one said to me that if I cannot answer, like I would still help them find like the
Yeah.
right door, you know. And I think that's the biggest unique selling point of any accelerator or any incubator, right? That they would know the people. For example, if it's a fintech product which is in sustainability, you would know Muffin sits in Frankfurt. You would go to them. BSI is there. You will connect them with them. So of course you cannot give them exact insights to what they would expect, but you would still know that this is the door that they have to knock on. You can connect, right? I mean, and that's the whole point. Which brings me to my next question about partnerships. So, what role do you think partnerships between startups, corporation, like, and especially corporates, and also investors play in the success of entrepreneurial ventures? Like, because like, it's the biggest. Like, I have seen it so many times. Like, it's startups say that yeah, investors give us money, and then we, hallelujah, we are successful. But the reality is far different. Burning through 2 million, 3 million euros is not a big problem in this generation now.
I think there are actually two questions you're asking. So,
Yeah.
when it comes to partnerships, I think the only answer I can give is it really depends. It depends on a bunch of factors. It depends on the business idea. It depends on your goal. Do you want to accelerate for 5 years, run through, and then go do the next biggest IPO? Or do you want to become a very solid family business and you want to still own that business 30 years down the road and pass it on to the next generation? And so it's a combination of, does the business idea work for that kind of a goal? So my goal is, let's say, to accelerate the business and in 5 years do a big IPO. But is this idea really happening with that? Is it even possible, really? If just by looking at the commonsensical parameters, maybe it's not. So you have to be honest, and
Mm.
you have to be honest with yourself when it comes to that. Then, obviously, this VC might be perfect for that idea and for that goal, but might be hampering on your development if you have a completely different goal and a completely different idea. Again, it's not a one size fits all. So for some startups, working with a corporate partner is the best thing they can do because it's maybe the same industry, maybe that corporate will buy them off down the road, will help them not only with money but with contacts. Maybe some of the customers of that big corporate will like this idea and would need this product from the startup, and they will take it on as well. For a different startup, that would not work at all. They really need an investor that will provide not only a large quantity of money, but a few other things down the road. And then, so yeah, it's you really have to be, when you are starting up, you have to be very honest, and you also have to really understand, what do you want to do? And what is your goal? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? What always helps and that actually never hurts is a real network, talking to people, exchanging ideas, listening. It's a big asset, especially in the business world. A lot of people, and especially startups, you see, they start a new thing, they have the first customers, they get very arrogant at some point, and they stop
Mm.
listening. That's a big mistake. You really have to continue listening to, even to people that are not from your industry, are not directly
Mm.
influencing or impacting your business. But the more you learn from others and from other experiences, the more you gain insight into what your next step should be, what the step after that should be. And sometimes you realize much more is possible than you initially thought. And some other times you realize, well, if I'm honest, that's not going to work. So I should know when to hold them, know when to fold them, they say at the poker table, know when to keep your cards and know when to just, be honest with you, first of all, and just let it be and move on. The longer you hang on and hold on to something that is not working, the longer you will be in the way of your own success.
Nicely said. I mean, it's. I think we need to have a word for this. Like where founders always say that it's my baby. So, and the problem is like you're the one who's stopping the baby from growing. Like even as parents, right? People who are parents, they send their kids to schools, they send their kids to university. Why? Because they want them to grow. So, and it's the same. Just the founders come to accelerators, founder goes to VCs, but if they don't listen, then they will never grow, right? But
And there are different phases too. So someone who did great in that phase from 0 to 10 million might do a miserable job from 10 to 100 million. So he gets stuck on the 20 million turnover and doesn't develop from there, because everything he's doing the same way he used to be doing it from 0 to 10, and things were working, like a lot of micromanagement, for example. That really works when you have a small team, when you're accelerating, pushing through. But once you've reached that level of mid-size investment or turnover, or just a certain amount of money that is coming in and a certain amount of customers that you have to keep happy, you should do other things, but you're the same person. So we all have to realize we do have our own limitations, and yeah,
true. I mean, it's fine, right? It's okay to accept that we have limitations, right? I think that's the biggest
it's
hurdle.
hard.
It's the biggest hurdle, right? I mean, like, but I remember one of my mentors, like, he always used to say one thing, and that sentence is now fixed in my brain. It was, Majid, the day you stop learning is the day your downfall begins.
No.
I mean, it is like it sounds very brutal, like, but it is like I felt if I stopped learning about product management and technology, I would not be able to compete in this competitive world, right? I mean, there are people who are learning how AI works and so on, how prompt engineering works, how that works, how this works. So this is the reason why I'm always pushing myself as well. But because sustainability is, you have mentioned sustainability multiple times, I want to talk a little bit about sustainability because it's also a key focus on your area. You mentioned that that's one thing you actually look into when you're looking for the next impactful startups.
Yeah.
How do you actually integrate sustainability into the development of startup? Let's say you found a startup, what would be the approach that they're able to integrate sustainability into their, like, DNA, so to say, startup DNA?
This is a very simple answer. Measure it. Just like you measure any other thing, just like you measure your financial reports, also measure your impact. There are obviously various standards of doing it, depending on how big the company is. What do they really want to focus on? Do they focus on the E? Do they focus on the S? Do they focus on the G? If they're in Europe, if they're somewhere else, there are again other standards and other focus, but measure it. And if we're talking about the very first year, we're talking about measuring it. If we're talking about year 5 or year 10, then I would say there's no such thing as over measuring it. Measure as much as you can, get new parameters, get new things integrated into your measurement, and just make sure you over measure whatever you're doing and your impact. How big is the impact when it comes to CO2? How big is the impact when it comes to your employees, to your supply chain? And so there's so many things, and you never get to the bottom of it. Honestly, you have to be careful not to get lost and not to just get distracted from your real business. You have to stay focused still on your customers and on your product and all of that. But I think it's a very clear cut answer. Measure it.
Hmm.
And
And
when people start telling you, "Oh, yeah, but you can't really measure X, Y, Z," I would say no. That is the biggest myth. There are so many tools out there and so many ways of doing it and doing it properly. Just measure it. Stop finding excuses. Just find ways. You know.
I
Yeah,
mean, now, especially due to the whole regulations, the CSRD and so on, ESG became very measurable. Like, I mean, and I mean, if you're a small startup, like I remember I was sitting in one meeting and these guys were like, if we are small, we don't have board meetings. Why do we need governance? I'm like, skip governance then. For like, if that's the problem, skip it. You can still do environment and social, right? I mean, there are a lot of things, I mean, you can still do. I'm like, you have your like it was in Germany. I was like, you have your Heizung on five all the time on all three floors. That's a disaster for me. And how many people are there in the office? Four people, five people. So why not ask them to sit in like one floor and turn the up off? I'm like, that's already sustainability, right? That's already you're caring about the environment. Turn less
absolutely.
lights on. I mean, yeah, you don't have a board meeting. You don't need to talk about board meetings if you don't have one. So there are a lot of things like you can still talk about.
I
But
perfectly agree with you. Yeah.
But I mean, you like how does your accelerator actually? Because now we talked about ESG. So for anyone who doesn't know what's ESG, it's environmental, social, and governance. So it's a framework that allows you companies to be more sustainable. So, but talking about how does your start accelerator program, right, actually support startup in incorporating ESG principles into their business model?
Um, yeah, by forcing them to measure it. So, yeah, we really do. And not only just forcing them and say, well, you do it, we also show them how to do it. We have a dedicated person that will advise every single one of them what are the best ways of looking at various parameters, what is relevant, what has the most impact, because we've been talking about impact. That dedicated person used to be a member of the very first Accelerator. She has her very own successful company where she's advising not only startups but also corporates and mid-sized companies. She has a software that goes with it. You don't have to buy that software from her. There are various other programs out there, software programs, I mean, and there's freeware. There's so as I as I said, I guess I'm repeating this now. If you want to do it, you'll find a way, and you'll find something that fits your business and your purpose and your size and your product and all of that. If you don't want to do it, you'll find excuses, just like any other time. So it's easy, you know. Yeah,
I mean, this is all. It is important to measure it, right? I mean, you mentioned multiple times also. I mean, if like this is now going to be one of the sentences I'm going to use. If you don't want to do it, just find the excuse.
yeah,
Like let's
exactly.
go over. Let's get over it. Like find the excuse.
Yeah,
So we know
exactly.
that that's the reason. But
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, obviously, sometimes things happen in life. You know, life is is full of unknowns and is full of surprises. Sometimes things just happen. But if you want to do it, you'll eventually find a way. And I think the two of us are a very good example because people watching this won't know this, but we've been trying to do this recording for over a year now. And yeah, various things happened down the road, but here we are about 14 months later. We are doing it because we both really wanted to do it. It's just, things outside of our power kept happening at an incredible rate. So, yeah, sometimes you really, it's destiny, I suppose. But at the end of the day, what matters is we did actually, you know, put our sleeves up and decided, let's do it. And here
yeah,
we are.
I mean, there is no other. I mean, we didn't find the excuse. But no, for us it was a little bit complicated, right? Things kept happening like you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
But because we are also like more or less coming towards an end, I would love that you run an accelerator, and there are a lot of people who want to start their business, right? So what advice would you actually give aspiring entrepreneurs who are just starting their journey, particularly in terms of building a sustainable and impactful business?
I will repeat a few of the things that I've said. You really have to be very honest with yourself. Do the people and does the universe need that product? Really? Just be honest. You know? And have a look, have a very good look at impact, have a very good look at sustainability. Because if you don't, they will hit you in the face sooner or later. They will come after you. So do yourself a favor and look at that at the very beginning. If you've done a homework and you're absolutely sure you want to go do it, then obviously, again, repeating myself, trust yourself down the road and just keep pushing against all those barriers and boundaries and challenges and problems that will occur. There is no such thing as smooth sailing when you start your own company. I've heard this multiple times from multiple people. As a rule of thumb, is whatever you want to do, it's going to take double as long as you planned it. You thought it would take 3 months, it's going to take 6, and it's going to cost at least double as much. So you thought it will take 100,000, it will take 200,000. So yeah.
No, that's good advice. I mean, and like I would like to add something on top of that. Remember, keep it simple. Like start with keep it simple. You don't need to build the most complex software out there to get the
Absolutely.
first. Like that's why accelerators have these programs where they actually help you figure that product market fit out without building extremely complex ERP systems or extremely AI or LLMs or so on. You
Absolutely.
know, and that's why I say to people that if someone comes to me, hey, Majid, I want to build this, I'm like, I would suggest you go talk to an incubator first because your product seems good, but it would be expensive. Like you would spend way too much money just getting a POC out. So maybe talk with them because, like, sometimes you will get an answer immediately from them. Then don't try building it. And this has happened. Like I remember, I told someone to do this. They went to an accelerator who was focused on deep tech. Accelerator said no, don't even try because it's very expensive. They had a corporate who had a lot of money. They tried doing it and they couldn't. So that's why it's a bad idea.
This
But
is just adding to what you've just said. What I say quite often is you don't have to make all the mistakes yourself. Just ask the right people, especially accelerators or people that have your best at the heart of their intentions. Just ask them, and you don't have to make that mistake yourself. Other people made that mistake before you, so just save yourself some trouble. Yeah.
that's nicely said, nicely said. But with that, I would like to thank you so much for joining in today. It was very insightful and actually fun. But is there something you would like to say as a closing remark without repeating yourself?
Yeah, sorry about that. Majid, it's been a pleasure, and it's been a great conversation, and I would love to continue it. And I'm absolutely sure I will hear from you one day when you are the next Oprah. I will tell everyone I was there when he started. From the very beginning, I was on board.
Yeah, true, true. You were actually one of the first ones I reached. That's true. It was only, I think, paid once in. Yeah, true, true. No, because the whole podcast is running since October 2023.
Here you go.
Yeah, so true. No, that's. I mean, I'm truly honored. The whole point is that we want to share stories, like, and inspire people, like that. Look, someone else did it. Learn from their mistakes. Learn from their growth, and connect with them. I mean, that's the whole point of networking, right? I mean, like people should be able to talk to you because if you have a startup, sustainability startup, you would have the link of the TGIZ in the description, so you can actually go there and look for information. And also LinkedIn from Petrutsa will be mentioned in the description. So if you want to connect with her, just go, feel free. If you agree or disagree, just write it into the comments. I hope it inspires someone at the end of the day. But thank you again. So, to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning into the executives this week. If you found this episode valuable, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your network. Until next time, this is Majid signing off.